Hey everybody, welcome to the Purpose People podcast. Today I've got Jamie Dawson from S.H.I.N.E. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
So we've had John on.
Yeah,
So you got a lot of work to do to aspire and beat John.
I can't talk as much as John, so he might have one up on me already.
So Jamie, obviously S.H.I.N.E. we're quite familiar with S.H.I.N.E., creation. My business is working with S.H.I.N.E. and the team. But what's your role within the context of S.H.I.N.E. as a business?
I've actually, in the last couple of weeks, changed my job title. So for a long time, I've been Director of Operations of S.H.I.N.E. Wraparound Care, which is the big beast that is S.H.I.N.E. That anyone that knows the company, that's what they'll know. But in the last year, there's become a sort of a group of businesses. So now the S.H.I.N.E. Group oversees S.H.I.N.E. Wraparound Care, which is the childcare and coaching company. Then there's a web development company, Team Tech 4. There's a facility management company called Go Shine, and which is the main project that I'm working on now, is a fourth company, which is S.H.I.N.E. Franchise Company Limited. So my new job title that I think you actually maybe came up with it, but I quite like is Group Director of Partnerships and Franchises.
Nice.
I think sort of my skill set is talking to people. So I like the partnership aspect of it, but primarily my focus at the moment is working on the franchise, and we're about to launch that probably by the time this goes to air, we'll be launching the franchise. And it's a whole new business that we've set up and trying to replicate what we do sort of further afield, basically.
So obviously, you're at school, whatever, and you're obviously quite into sport. You're quite tall, as my wife told you earlier, 6'6", if you're wondering. What was the aspirations in sport? Did you want to be a football player? Do you want to be a basketball player?
I actually wanted to be a commentator.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I realised that I wasn't good enough to be a professional, which was by about the age of 6, I've always enjoyed talking about sport. And it's not just football. I love every sport, and I've always enjoyed, whether it's commentary or whether it's writing little match reports for my football club or my cricket club, or it's doing little podcasts to talk about the cup finals that we've had. I've always had a bit of an interest in that. So for a long time, and actually I'm not against still trying to do this at some point. It's some form of sports journalism is interests me.
Yeah, because there's I can't remember the name of the guy now. He does the high performance podcast. Name escapes me. Jake Humphreys. Yeah, but he started in I think it was Norwich, Radio Norwich, and then basically spotted a niche in the market in Formula One. So what he realised is in their paddock, all the engineers were doing videos with their phones, like, to get it to the main team to edit stuff.
Yeah.
And he said, well, they're engineers, so they're not videographers. So he just started this business being the videographers that did that job.
Yeah.
And within a few years, he had like a £10 million business.
Yeah, cool.
And he's not doing so much broadcasting because that was his day job.
Yeah.
And now he just does the high performance podcast with his mate. And, but his heart is the sports journalism, talking, engaging. So maybe you should do the podcast.
Yeah, maybe. I've always enjoyed talking and writing, and particularly like my football team and my cricket team that I play for.
Who are they? Well, you can give them a shout out.
Chew Magna Football Club, Chew Valley Cricket Club. I'm very Chew Valley focused for anybody that knows me. It's a little village or area sort of close to the airport, just outside Bristol, halfway between Bristol and Bath, and that's my community. So anything to do with that area is a bit of me. So but writing little articles for the Chew Valley Gazette or Facebook match reports and that sort of stuff is something that I've always quite enjoyed, and I think something that's led me into what I do now, because a lot of what I do is based around communication, and so it's I think one of my better skill sets. So it's something that from an early age, that was when I knew I wasn't going to be a professional sports person. Then it was.
Well, it's an interesting one, because I think often what people do is they pursue this aspect of becoming a sports star, the hero in their journey, and then not everyone can make it, right? So there's a high percentage of, I think it's less than 1% can make it in Premier League football, right? So, but then some people just never even think about a career in sport. It's like, well, I either can play or I can't, and that's it. But like with yourself, you've kind of like you've built this career to where you are now, but the sport is the common theme. So you've managed to retain the enjoyment of sport, but find other ways to engage with it. So at school then, what was the route? Like when you left school, did you go and study and sort of like try and get into the game that way, or was it you just take a job and see where this goes?
So the story is that after I finished school, I had a gap year after I finished sixth form, and I worked at our local builders in Shoe Valley, and absolutely loved it, and was quite keen just to do an apprenticeship in bricklaying or carpentry or something like that, and go down that route. And then I planned to go traveling. I did a 2-3 month tour around the world, and the guys that I went with were like, look, I had a deferred place for university at Southampton to do sports science, and they're like, you should go to university, you'll enjoy it, and even if you go back to the idea of an apprenticeship afterwards, you should go to university. And I think it was the last year or the penultimate year when there was still the slightly cheaper fees. So I went, and there was this big build up about Freshers Week, and on the first night of Freshers Week, I got in a taxi home at 11 o'clock and said to the taxi driver, I was like, this is not the life for me. I want to go back to Chew Valley and back to the builder's yard and have that lifestyle. And then I started my course, and I straight away fell in love with my course, and loved the people on my course, like all like-minded people like me, and they're still my best friends now. And actually, really interestingly, of the sort of the 7 or 8 really good friends I've got from university, I think 4 or 5 of them did. It was either sports science or sports management, or a combination of the two. Yeah. And we all still work in sport now. And so I went on and did my degree with the plan of becoming a PE teacher at the end of it. So I finished my degree in the May time, and had a place to start my PGCE, which is your teacher training course, in the September. And so had a gap of a few months where I needed to earn some money. And John had coached me at school, and said, well, we're doing some holiday clubs. Do you want to come and help out and do that? Because it's working with children. That's what you're going to go and do. And I went and did that. So for the last term before the kids broke up for the summer holidays, and then did the summer holiday camps. And at the end of that, I think John spoke to Sean and said, look, I think Jamie's going to be like a good member of staff. I think we should offer him a contract to try and tempt him to not go off to do the PGC and stay with us. And I think Sean took a bit of persuading, because at the time they didn't know whether they could afford a member of staff. I was going to be the first full-time member of staff that S.H.I.N.E employed. Yeah. And they sort of took a bit of a punt, and offered me a contract, and I'd really enjoyed what I'd done, and the thought of earning money rather than sort of paying money to go back to uni again for another year really interested me. And that was getting on for 13 years ago, and I've been at S.H.I.N.E ever since.
That's incredible. So literally, it was like almost like an intervention, really, wasn't it? It's like I try it out and did it. It's funny because I did a stint in between what I did, like I was studying at college and stuff, being an art director in design and communication. But then in the summers, I was playing for a representative side, and the coach said, unbeknownst to me, I didn't realise how big a coach he was until I looked back, but he said, go and get your badges. Yeah. So I did a badge and ended up coaching with him on a regular basis up in Clifton College. There's a company called King Sports Caps.
Yeah, I know.
So I used to do that, like coach up there in the summer or in the Easter and stuff. And I enjoyed it. I loved it. I mean, I always remember there's a few calamities that I had done. I remember one kid, we were told in the morning briefing, this child always goes to the toilet because there's a sweep machine in the toilet. So we're all briefed and everything like that. So it's like, don't let him go. All right, okay. So the one time I said, right, don't go. Guess what? All of a sudden the kids are laughing and he's wet himself. And I'm like, no. So it's like really like, and thankfully I had a spare like kit and everything got changed or whatever else. And I was just thinking, I felt so bad, you know. It's like the one guy that says no to him, because that's what everyone's saying. You must say no. So I was like, yes, I said no to him. Yeah. And then he's embarrassed, so I can't remember his name. And
you don't want to name him.
I don't want to name him, but he'd probably be in a podcast somewhere else and said, "Oh, there's this horrible coach."
yeah.
But I enjoyed the aspects of being outside and engaging and working with kids and doing different sports. And I think at the time there was a thing called Terry Venables' Soccer Stars scheme. Yeah. And I used to run that in the afternoons with all the kids. Yeah. And I had a bunch of 8-year-olds that took on the 9-year-olds, and we beat them at everything. It was water polo, it was football, whatever we did, we beat them. Yeah. So I remember really enjoying it. And there was that aspect of, I think I was of the mindset that I can't have a career in sport, I've got to make it. And if I can't make it, then there's no point. Yeah. And then I ended up doing what I'm doing now, which I enjoy as well. But I think, like you know, local football, playing in teams, I did that for years, and that I I don't think you can beat that community aspect of that being part of a team and
No, it's
playing. It's so cool.
Yeah, and I think actually, the more I think about it, it's like what matters to you, and I think loyalty is a really really important thing for me, because I think about it, and I've only ever had one football club, I've only ever had one cricket club,
Yeah.
and I've only ever had one sort of proper full-time job.
And who's your football team?
Bristol City.
Bristol City.
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
you go and watch them a lot?
Yes, I used to have a season ticket up until the age of 18, and then I joined SHOUTOUT Football Club and have played every Saturday since.
Yeah.
And I will have a season ticket again in the future when I can't play football anymore, I think. But whilst I can still play or still go, I haven't played recently, actually. I've just had a little baby, so I haven't played for a while. But yeah, I've been up to watch a few times.
So in terms of S.H.I.N.E as an organisation, then, because obviously you've gone there, you were like the first employee now. I mean, what's changed? Because a lot has changed.
Everything's changed. It's been pretty incredible to watch the transformation of sort of children turning up to holiday clubs, and Sean sat on the door taking sort of the £20 cash off the parents and writing your name on an Excel spreadsheet, to we've now spent probably millions of pounds on the technology that we've got within our infrastructure. And you were just talking about having sort of like a staff free kids at holiday camps. We used to do that all the time, but now because of health and safety reasons, we've got to be so much more careful with how we go about our coaching practice. It's very different. It's sometimes frustrating because S.H.I.N.E is now such a big provider, that obviously we've got to do everything by the book, and you see some of the smaller providers that are out there and still having the sort of the fun engagement that we used to do, where we used to have staff free kids football matches at the end of every day of holiday club, and it was a really sort of enjoyable experience, to now we've got to be much more health and safety conscious, and we've got to make sure that our practice is absolutely above everything else safe, while still making it a really welcoming and encouraging and enjoyable environment. And that's the way that we've got to go down now, because we see tens of thousands of children at holiday camps every year. We've got to make sure that we're doing our responsibility to safeguard these children, and sometimes at the expense of a little bit more of the enjoyment side of things, I think, at times.
I think that's it, isn't it? I think, like, even if you look at like football, as in Premier League football, they brought VAR in because that's like, we don't want to get a decision wrong, and I think now I watch the game where we score and I have to wait before celebrating, because I'm like, it's going to get, my default is it's not a goal.
Yeah.
That's where I've got to now. It's like we score and it's like, it's not a goal.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you've got to prove that it was a goal,
yeah,
rather than it's a goal and let's show you why it couldn't be. It's more, you've scored, but it's probably not going to be a goal, so let's just keep going.
Yeah, and when there's so much riding on it at that level, is that I think first and foremost they want to get the correct decision, even if that means that you take away the euphoria of the moment of scoring a goal.
Yeah.
And it's not like that working with children at all. It's not that deep. But we do have to make sure that above everything else that we're safe.
Yeah, 100%.
And we've got the right environment, and yeah, that has come, and I have seen a massive shift in over the years of what we used to do and how we used to run the business, and the conversations that we used to have in the office, and that sort of stuff, to what it is now. And it's been actually, it's one thing that I'm hugely passionate about, is company culture.
Yeah.
And I think it's still really important we retain that fun culture, and that to me is really, really important. But whilst doing it appropriately. And I think so. Our values at S.H.I.N.E spell out S.H.I.N.E, so safe, happy, inspired, nurtured, empowered. And I think we try as much as we can now to live through those values. They're sort of plastered on the walls around our offices and stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, you helped us come up with them, which is very good.
Thanks.
And yeah, the shift to sort of living through those values now is different to what it was when I started. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, because obviously we've been engaged and working with S.H.I.N.E for many years, and I think what we've seen is the it feels now like, even when you drive up to Golden Hill where the gates are, it feels like a club. Like you got the sign on the door, and obviously with the offices now about to launch and stuff, I think you look at it, the professionalism is great. I mean, it's like second to none. I mean, our hope was like, well, if Nike did a wraparound childcare, what would it look like? And that's kind of began our quest in terms of making it look how it is and where it's at. And obviously we're doing some stuff together now with video and that's really exciting. But I think for me, what would you say does set you apart within the childcare world, within the Southwest? You know, what are the things that you do really well that you say, you know, not to poo-pah anybody else doing it, because everyone's got to start somewhere, but what would you say S.H.I.N.E does really well?
Well, it's often I get asked this question when I go in to meet with new trusts or new schools and meeting with various people, because every company is going to say they've got the best coaches.
Yeah.
If you're a sports coaching company or a childcare provider, then your product is your coaches. So they need to be really good, but every company is going to say that theirs are really good, and proof is in the pudding of that. So I think our sort of USP is our investment in our technology.
Yeah.
And I think that's led to the fact that we are able to have also all of our staff have tablets now, and when they're doing registration, it's live. Ticking children in. So if I wanted to book a child onto a session now, then in 30 seconds time that will be showing on the register, which means that parents have maximum flexibility in order of when they can book their children into clubs, particularly holiday clubs. That's a big advantage. And so all our staff are ticking children in on tablets, and then also within that is the safeguarding side of it, that they can fill out an accident form on their tablet, and at the click of a button, the parent gets an email notification that their child's had a head bump, or you can notify the school that the child's been involved in a behavioural situation that they need to be made aware of.
Yeah.
And I think that investment in the technology has reduced the administration time for not just our staff, but for the school as well. And that means that they've got more time to be able to do other things. Time, a very precious commodity.
Yeah.
And I think that it means that our coaches, rather than thinking about sort of, I've got to fill in this instant form, or I've got to go and redo the register again to check that I've got the numbers that I'm supposed to have, can concentrate primarily on the children, and invest their time and energy in each individual child, as opposed to everything around it. Because sports coaching actually is half is with the child, the other half is everything around it, making the environment safe and making it the best.
And I don't think people realize that, do they? I mean, like, it's the same in teaching. You know, like, a lot of teaching is administration, not necessarily not actually teaching, which is the very thing that got you in the thing in the first place.
Yeah.
So by having a technology in place to free you up to focus on the kids is
and that's the reason that people will go out of teaching. I think if it was just a case of teaching children, then the education industry would be have a lot more retention of teachers than what it currently does.
Yeah.
But it's everything around it, which is the reason why they're leaving the profession. And actually it's something that S.H.I.N.E has benefited from. We've picked up quite a few ex-teachers that want to stay working with children, but don't want the stress of the industry as the education system is at the moment.
Exactly. But like I remember Claire being in a certain school. I'm not going to name them, but it's like you do the exam results and there's like triple entry. So you got you write it down, then you go to an Excel spreadsheet, then you got to take the Excel spreadsheet into one system, and then from that system, and it was so convoluted. And I remember, because I'm tech side of things, which is where our journey began with S.H.I.N.E, and I'm like, well, surely there's a quicker way to do this. I was like, well, no, that's just the way that they are. That's the way they do it. And even mentioning tech is, it's so scary, and it's actually the guy in the cupboard that works in IT that sorts that out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but if you're forward thinking enough, there would be, surely you put a system that helps the end user, which is like the parents, for example. And I think that's where S.H.I.N.E has shined in that instance, in where they've created a technology that makes it, I can book people on and engage with. And I think for me, it's all about safety. It's all about understanding that my kid is looked after. And if I can first of all, book them on simply enough, then everything else follows. Whereas sometimes you can't even book them on, or you're phoning a phone number that's just ringing and ringing and ringing and no one's answering. I think the technology thing, what we've been part of, is to see that it's just click, swipe, buy, dang, and it's there.
And the nice thing at the moment is, so this Team Tech 4 company that sort of power our technology, there's a director of technology, a senior web developer, and a junior web developer within that group. and they're working in the office next to us. So when we experience a problem, whether that's a problem with something to do with a session, or whether that's something behind the scenes in terms of I want to analyse the amount of children that are attending clubs on a Friday because they've dropped down compared to what they were on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Those sorts of problems that we have, we've got this web development team that are there with us that can basically try and find a solution to solve it. And I think that's probably there's another USP to our franchise, but that's definitely something that will, when we roll out our franchise package, will set us apart from everybody else, which is the investment in technology, and then the everyday solution. So when the next problem comes up, finding the tech solution to it and then implementing that for all franchisees, I think will be something that will set us apart from everybody else.
Yeah, and I think that's my point, is that technology is very much at the heart of top end sport. And what you've done is brought technology into the areas of grassroots, childcare in a sense, but sport in essence. And I think technology done well works. It doesn't always work, but I think it takes time. And what Sean and John and yourself and the team have invested in is like, no, we know we're going to start somewhere and we want to improve it. And I think what often happens is people won't start because they want it to be perfect.
Yeah.
And I think Sean has benefited is that he got we iterate, we make it better, but it's going to happen over a period of time, which is the same way as running a football team.
Yeah.
You buy your players in, but they're not going to get results immediately. It's going to take a bit of time to know the system, find the system, get the right people in place, get the right support teams, and even now, my football team, we're talking, the problem with Liverpool is their set piece coach. We weren't having those conversations 10 years ago. Yeah. It was like, no, the players are rubbish. Let's buy someone else.
And I think the massive credit to John and Sean is their reinvestment in the technology. I think it would be almost fair enough it's a successful business to take more money out the company than what they've done, but they always reinvest it back in. And the investment in technology, I think now we're seeing the fruits of their labour essentially. It's because it's I think 2026 is a really exciting year for S.H.I.N.E, but that's been born of the fact that for the last 5-10 years, the money that the company has made, they've put back into it to be able to have this S.H.I.N.E group of companies now, and the tech side of it, the Team Tech 4, benefits all three of them, the other three companies. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've been successful, and hopefully this year we'll go on to be successful.
So just talk us through your journey, because you obviously you started as the first employee, and then you end up being chief of operations. And now you're Mr. Franchise. So just explain that journey within the organisation, because some people out there are listening to this podcast thinking, I wonder if I could do a career in sport, and you're proof of the pudding that you can. And where you've ended up now is into quite a major role within quite a large established childcare company, but you've obviously had to adapt and change and learn along the route. So talk us through your journey a little bit.
Yeah. So I've I think I'd like to. I've worked really hard to get to where I've got, which I think is first and foremost, and within that. For example, when I started at S.H.I.N.E, and I was not employed for all the hours in the day. So I was coaching, just coaching, and then I was sort of sat around in the sports hall where S.H.I.N.E were based at the time, sort of twiddling my thumbs a bit. And I was like, well, what can I do to try and help out here? And I self-taught myself Photoshop at the time.
Oh, okay.
So I then did a bit of the marketing stuff, and so then I managed to pick up some. I was 0 hours contract when I first started. Until I got offered that contract, and I would coach, and then I'd have a couple of hours, so I would then play around on Photoshop, and then got to the stage where John and Sean were like, well, actually we need some marketing stuff done, so then they would employ me in those hours to do that bit of marketing, and then had a bit of a knack for sort of problem solving, which led sort of me into an operations route, and then pretty quickly the company had grown to be from 1 school to 3 schools to 5 schools to 7 schools, and so therefore we needed more staff to come on. And just because I'd been there first, I guess I was the sort of the experienced one that would help the other people of where they sort of help them out when they first started. And I think also S.H.I.N.E did get really lucky in the first instance that we had a really, really good crop of coaches. So me and sort of 7 or 8 others were all sort of best friends. and we were all really invested in what we were doing. But they were always going to do the job that they did at S.H.I.N.E for a period of time before they went off into their different directions of their careers that they're now in. And because I stayed, I just learnt loads, picked up stuff from John and Sean, picked up like things from my own friends in different industries that I thought could benefit S.H.I.N.E, and sort of put it together. And I just sort of stumbled across being able to do a little bit of everything, which sort of lends itself to operations.
Yeah.
So I then became I think my career path, I was a coach, and then a operations manager, then a head of operations, then a director of operations, into what I am now. So I just sort of grown up with the company and just tried to, I don't know, have a positive impact on everything that I turned my hand to. And luckily for me, it's I think that energy, I'd say probably my biggest strength is my energy and my enthusiasm. And I think as much as anything, that's rubbed off on other people and caused made for a good company culture that means that people want to work at S.H.I.N.E and want to make a difference to children, which ultimately is what we're here to do. So
well, that's it. And I think but I think, if the coaches aren't motivated to, hey, let's make this the best coaching session, that's obviously going to filter out on the pitch. Well, that was a bit rubbish, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like the kids turn up to play, and you're like, oh, I'm not feeling it today. Let's play Sleeping Lions for a full hour, and it's like, well, that's not really what we're paying for. We're trying to engage or learn or enjoy. So, with that, then, with your leadership, then obviously you've had to learn and adapt to quite a fast-paced, fast-changing organisation. Where now, like S.H.I.N.E's been around 15 years now.
15 years this year, yeah.
Yeah, 15 years this year. So you would argue now it's sort of like growing up, as in they got the tech in place, they got the coaches, they got the infrastructure, now you've got the group in place.
Yeah.
To then take that on, say, hey, we want to franchise this out. That's quite a brave move.
Yeah.
So what makes you different? Because there's so many different franchises out there and different. What makes S.H.I.N.E different?
So we had a bit of a eureka moment. So the franchise idea came about actually when it was at the end of COVID 3 years ago now, and we went into work and I was still sort of involved in the day-to-day at that point, and there was 15 staff off with COVID, and we were trying to like plug gaps in to make sure that we had the right amount of people in front of children to satisfy all the ratios that we had to do. And I was like, this is impossible. We're 15 staff off. How are we supposed to do this? We're now too big to be able to manage this just ourselves. So it was at that point that I think John, Sean and I sort of sat down and we're like, right, I think this is now time to start thinking about the franchise more seriously. So it was sort of born from there. And I think Sean had always had a plan in the back of his mind that it's something that he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And we put everything in place, and our USP for, as I've mentioned, is our tech. And we got a little nibble from somebody that was interested in a franchise based in Leicester. And Sean and I got the train up to go and meet him. And one thing that we hadn't fully decided was the size of a territory within the franchise. So we were on the train up to Leicester, and we're like, well, should we have 25 schools in a territory and give this bloke 2 territories to give him the best chance to succeed? Should we have 50 schools? Should we have 100 schools? And Sean had a bit of a eureka moment. He's like, well, why don't we just scrap the idea of a territory altogether, and he can have as many schools as he wants? And we played it out and chatted it through, and actually that's become now our main USP. So we're bidding ourselves as S.H.I.N.E, the pay-as-you-grow franchise. And the idea behind it is the startup cost, which is typically for franchises in the sports coaching and childcare industry between £12,500 and £20,000. Ours is going to be £2,500. So we don't want the initial startup cost to be a barrier, because a lot of people that will be interested in this are the likes of me that don't have £20,000 lying around to be able to invest in a franchise. And then where S.H.I.N.E will make its money is the percentage of monthly income that we'll take.
Yeah.
And actually, if we don't mind, therefore, that if somebody's got a school in Leicester and they work with a school in Leicester, but also they've got an interest and a little nibble from a school in Derby, and they want to get a school in Derby as well, then actually we don't mind who's overseeing that franchise. As a company, we want to we take our monthly service fee and sort of get on with things. So the whole idea of our franchise is that we've reduced the startup cost, which reduces the risk. Because if you have got 50 schools in a territory, for example, there's absolutely no guarantee that you've got access to all of those 50 schools to be able to work in them. They might have third-party providers already in there. They might run it in-house themselves. And with schools going down this trust route, and all schools having to be in trusts by 2030, there's quite a good chance that if you're working with a trust, they're going to stretch over more than one territory anyway. So by doing things this way, it means that all we've got to do is sort of tick to say, yep, we're happy for you to take on that school in a different area, and then away a franchisee goes. So I think the whole idea with our concept is to reduce risk and make it affordable for franchisees to try and be successful.
Yeah, it's for me, it's a very different approach, but it also takes the stress out of managing territories and you're in my patch and you're not in my patch or whatever. It's like the chances are you can build it around the individual, and they can say, well, yeah, I want 3 schools here, but I've got a mate, that I'm working with in Cornwall. Let's
yeah.
do something.
And I think crucially,
well.
we retain the right to say yes or no to a franchisee wanting to work in a particular setting. So if somebody wants to come and have a school in Bristol that's right next door to S.H.I.N.E to our current patch, we'll be like, well, it's great that you're interested in this school, but actually we're going to keep this one to ourselves, thank you. So we can say no as well. And I think that's really important for a franchisee to know that whilst you can have any school that you want, we also retain the right to say no to you having a setting, because it might be that actually we've got a very successful franchisee in that area already, and we'll let them have that school because we trust what they're doing as well. So I think hopefully it's a really appealing prospect to anybody that's interested in franchising and sports coaching or childcare. But it won't be, and it's really important to stress that we don't want people to think that because we're cheaper, it's lower quality. I think we back ourselves and pride ourselves on our business structure and on the technology as mentioned. But there's still definitely protection for a franchisee to be able to mean that they're not going to have somebody just land on their doorstep and take over all the settings that are local to them if that's not going to be right.
Yeah. So when you talk about ultimately one of the biggest things of why S.H.I.N.E exists and childcare and obviously sports associated with it is kids don't move so much, so getting them out and playing and whatever. But one thing I've seen with S.H.I.N.E is that they are evolving in terms of they do other things as well. So do you want to it's not just sport, is it, what S.H.I.N.E, do you want to just share a little bit about
I think that's really important, is that again, a lot of franchises are concentrating on sport. We're very much activity focused, and activity can be sport or it can be creative. So within the existing business of S.H.I.N.E Wraparound Care, our most popular activity that we run is Fun with Food, which is a sort of cookery style session. We can't call it cookery because obviously not all schools have the facilities to be able to actually cook the food at the end of it, but it's sort of food prep and making stuff that you can then take home and put in the oven when you get back. So another really big arm of what we do is our drama, our performing arts is really popular. So it's very much not just sports focused. And it's hard to get the pitch right, because it can be sports focused. We have development squads that play evening and weekend sports, and whether that's football, gymnastics, basketball, cricket, netball, all sorts, that has sort of thousands of children that are doing that on evenings and weekends. But we also have thousands of children that are doing pottery sessions and that are doing junk modelling sessions, that are doing painting and drawing sessions. So the scale of what you can do is up to you, really. And if you're a yoga teacher and you want to come and teach yoga to children, then this franchise is perfect for you. If you're if you're interested in football and you want to you want to roll out football across the board and do that, this franchise is perfect for you. And if you want to do a little bit of everything, then it works as well. So it's hopefully it appeals to everybody.
So what would you say to someone now, like you're where you are, and there's someone considering a career in sport? What would your advice be to that person starting out? In terms of the journey that you've gone on, because I think what you've done is just be consistent. What advice would you be to someone that's faced with the position of getting into sport? What would you say to them?
I think that you just got to be really passionate and really energetic, and I think that there's a lot of talk around the fact that you can't be nice to be successful, or you're too. I just think that's all rubbish. I think if you're true to yourself and you're really passionate about what you do, and this is not just for sport, this is in any direction that you want to go in. But if you want to work in the sports coaching industry, find the thing that you want to do. It might be coaching, it might be marketing within sport, it might be HR within sport. It can be anything. Then you just got to roll with it, and I think you'll get knocked down along the way. But it's about bouncing back and being consistent with your thought process and how you want to do things. And I actually have this conversation with my wife quite a lot, that I am really lucky that I've stumbled in a job that into a job that I really, really, really love. But also it's a really sort of good career position for me to be in, and and I guess I'm lucky that I've managed to find a job that sort of pays the bill, and I do well for myself, as well as like be able to make a difference. And I think the overwhelming thing with what I do is that I'm hopefully positively impacting children and getting more children active, which is a pretty cool thing to say that you're able to do.
So what shifted now? Because you just recently become a father.
Yeah.
So what shifted now? Do you feel a little bit different? Are you looking at life differently now?
The only thing that I feel different now is so for me, and we've had somebody to come in, and he's done talks for us in the past at work about what's your non-negotiable, and if that thing was taken away, you would leave the company. And some people will pick money, some people will pick working with children. Mine's fun. Like I want to go into a workplace and have a smile on my face, because if you've got to work all day every day, then it's no good if you don't enjoy it. So I've always wanted to work in like an enjoyable environment. But actually, and whilst that is still really important, I think trying to make S.H.I.N.E as successful as possible, so that hopefully we can all earn a bit more money to be able to then to support my daughter, is taken on a bit more importance. I think I'm more motivated than ever to make it a success, so that I can try and give my daughter the best chance. But and it's interesting, obviously, in being in the childcare, but particularly sports coaching world, is that if you'd asked me a couple of years ago, I would have always said that I wanted a little boy to be able to take them to the football and do that sort of stuff with them. But now the opportunity for girls to be able to access sport is so much greater than what it used to be. Means that there's just as many girls football teams, there's girls cricket teams, netball teams, girls rugby teams that whether she likes it or not, my daughter's probably going to be involved in when she's a bit older. So that's an exciting thing to have helped influence as well.
Yeah, definitely. So with the wider picture of S.H.I.N.E, obviously, you're impacting young people across the country, because obviously there is this world of video games and sat in front of a machine and not interacting with people and stuff. So you're effectively impacting that as a solution. Where do you see the things evolve with S.H.I.N.E over the next sort of like 10 years? You've done 15 already. I don't know how many you've been part of that 15-year journey. How many years you've been at S.H.I.N.E?
Nearly 13.
So yeah, right at the beginning.
Yeah.
So what do you think the next 10 years could look like? Obviously, in terms of where S.H.I.N.E could go and the influence that it could have.
I think just positively impacting more people. When we rebranded S.H.I.N.E with you guys, probably about 3, 4, 5 years ago now. You asked us to put a number on the amount of children that you thought we could impact. And I think you suggested 1 million. And so in our original mission statement, it was like impact 1 million children. And we took that bit out because we thought it was pie in the sky. And we didn't think that like 1 million's, it's like, who are these guys? Who do they think they are, thinking that they can impact 1 million children? But actually, I think now there is a real opportunity to have an impact on a pretty sort of large number of children. And
that's the point, vision isn't where you are, it's where you're going. And obviously from an outsider looking in, I could see the infrastructure building that would enable you to do that. I like, we put like, we want to influence, I think it's like I don't know, 150,000 CEOs and business owners. And people are like, well, you're not going to do 150,000 workshops, are you? And I'm like, no, which we do the podcast, right? So we're talking about purpose and everything. And, just if you just look at those numbers, who's been listening to the podcast, you go, oh, okay, I can see how these guys are going to hit those numbers. And I think it's always good to have a number, because it does show that you want to be beyond 5 years. You want to be 10 years, 15, 20 years. And I think you're probably entering a season now where the kids that you coached might even come and work for Shine.
Yeah, that's already started.
Yeah.
It's been very full circle. There's a couple of girls actually at the moment that I used to teach netball to when they were in year 5 and 6 that are now working for us full time. And we had a really good netball team then, and they still talk about it now. And it's a bit of a makes me feel very old actually. But I think there's one other aspect to what we're doing at the moment, and that's that we started working with an organisation called SACA, so the School Age Childcare Association, and it started by a brilliant guy called Craig Jones, who works for Junior Adventure Group JAG, who are probably the biggest provider of childcare in the UK. And they actually started off in Australia, then went to New Zealand, and now have sort of taken over a few companies in the UK. And he started this group for medium to large childcare providers that have sort of, among other things, been working with the Department of Education to try and change the attitude towards the sector.
Yeah.
And he was telling me that before COVID, there was one person in the Department of Education that worked within the childcare sphere, and now there's 33.
Wow.
Which shows the growth of the industry. And I think there's still slightly a misconception that sort of our industry is something that you do as a little bit of a gap, a bit of a filler between going to start your real job. And what we're trying to do is show that actually, if you want to be a sports coach, then you don't have to just be the next Pep Guardiola. You can impact lots of children in really positive ways by doing it in companies like S.H.I.N.E. And then it's not just sports coaching now. Obviously, it's this creative sessions as well, and it's childcare work. Is that I think there's always been this idea that the childcare and the wraparound care industry, particularly for lunch, for breakfast and after school clubs, is something that that is not. It's quite a fast-paced industry where a lot of people come into it and then they move out of it, and so you're quite often thinking about recruitment, you're quite often thinking about retainment. And actually we've got a really great retainment record at S.H.I.N.E, where the average length of service is around 3 years, which is really good for our industry. And we're trying to improve that all the time, but by working with SACA and S.H.I.N.E are really heavily involved in that program, I think we will see over the next few years the whole attitude towards the sector continue to grow, and I think that will only help then have more impact on more people.
I think when I look back now, it's like a lot of grassroots sports clubs have the sort of person that's working as an accountant during the week, and then they're coaching football at the weekend or Saturday morning or whatever else, and they might actually be better coaches than they are accountants, but the coaching doesn't pay because it's amateur, right?
Yeah.
But I think because we now, or generally most sort of couples end up working, both are working, just because of the cost of living, whatever, then childcare takes on a whole new level of importance, whereby if you could give the person who absolutely loves coaching at a grassroots club the opportunity to do this full time and get paid for it, when they kind of maybe not like accountancy so much, and they could do their own books, right? Then I think that's great, because I remember growing up and thinking they're just doing this as a part-time, but they're brilliant coaches.
Yeah.
You know, my coach, I talked about a representative side I used to play for, you know, fantastic coach. I think he looked after essentially the Southwest in terms of county teams and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, I looked at that and I was like, wow, you know, but he was working as a PE teacher in the school and getting the life sucked out of him on a daily, and he would come alive when he was like, oh right, now it's the summer camps, I love doing this. And I think, you know, there's certain opportunity where grassroots and trying to get funding and all that sort of stuff where they may still volunteer, but now there's an opportunity, I think, where they could actually get a career out of it, which I think is the most interesting part, that you might love it, you might be absolutely talented, but here's an avenue where you can actually get paid to do it.
And our challenge is to try and pay enough to be able to get a mortgage and be able to pay your bills and stuff. And it's something that we're working really hard to do. And it's interesting, actually, we have sort of 500 plus kids attend holiday club days. And we surveyed the parents, and 95% of the parents that use our services, where we've got cricket academies running, football academies running, netball academies, all this, 95% of the parents use us for childcare. So we're very much an activity-based childcare provider. but it just shows that the demand is there. Parents, yeah, as you say, both parents in this day and age need to work to be able to
Absolutely.
to make the money. So there's like our industry has gained more and more importance. And actually, I went to a ministerial reception with Bridget Phillipson, the Secretary of State for Education, a couple of months ago, and she talked about it in that in that environment, that actually, obviously, school education is really important, but the hours around the school day, the breakfast hours and the after school hours are just as important, because what Labour are interested in getting people working to put money back into the economy, and you can't do that if you've got to pick your child up at 3:00 or 3:15.
No, and I think, and it's also understanding that, you know, the children can have as good an experience there as they could at school.
Yeah.
You know, school's got the safeguard, and it's got this, it's got that, it's got the organisation, whatever, and then they go to childcare, and it's like done on the back of a bit of like A4 paper,
and that's what this SACA group is all about. I think there's been an attitude that the industry has been run on the back of a fag packet for a long time, and what companies like S.H.I.N.E are trying to do is show that actually that's not what we're about anymore. No. And we don't want the reputation of a bloke that goes and puts his bag of footballs in the back of his car and jumps out and doesn't really have a register. That is tainting our industry. Yeah. And so what we want to do is make a sort of a standardized I guess level of coaching that you have to adhere to, so that we raise the standards of childcare. Yeah. Which sports coaching is a big part of childcare. I think that sometimes people get a little bit muddled up between our childcare and sports coaching. Well, actually, if you're going to go and do a football session after school, and you're going to do some drills that you're going to work on your passing for week 1 and your tackling in week 2, that's sports coaching, but in a childcare setting. And I think sometimes people think that they're two different things. Actually, they come together much more than you might think. I think some people would associate childcare with doing your homework and doing Lego. Yeah. Whereas I think that there is an activity focus to childcare. That's what S.H.I.N.E prides itself on.
Yeah, and I think that, and you know, like, I look back now, and this is why I think it's so exciting to see what's happened with the childcare industry, is that, you know, after school clubs and after school care, you know, like, I remember wanting to play in sports teams for our school, and it was always the teachers that were doing it, and so therefore they were on strike, so we couldn't play. I remember we had a basketball, we were all hyped up, we sort of like had trials and everything, got to the basketball, and then our teacher went on strike because that was what his union was doing, and we never played. Yeah. And I was like, what? Like, literally, there's this whole build up over the summer, whatever, and we just never played it. And they said, no, I'm on strike again. And literally, the basketball team never got off the ground. Yeah. And I looked at that and thought, this is a shame. Well, now there's like S.H.I.N.E comes in and they could do it. He said, well, look, don't worry about that. You go and strike. We're going to be looking after the kids. And then you could go and express yourself and play sport. I think a lot of sport that I did was like, we would go to the football pitches, you know, trying to dodge the caretaker. Yeah, yeah. Or we had the fences where the tennis courts were, and you could pull up the fence. Yeah. We used to slide underneath there, and we'd play tennis for about an hour until we get screamed at, and then we're quickly under the fence and out of there. Yeah. And that was our after school care, you know. Yeah. And I think for me that was because I wanted to get out there, I wanted to play whatever. And I look now where it's organised and you can do that. We didn't have those things out there. And I think, you know, having it organised, having it as good as essentially what school could be as well is even better. But like, not everybody was like me, you know. Yeah. They would sit at home and just play video games. Exactly, yeah. You know, and that was it. And I'm like, well, I'm glad I did that, you know, wearing sort of the Andre Agassi t-shirts, playing tennis or whatever. Yeah. And it was great. You know, you're just learning different sports and you're just making it up as you go along. But it was like, it wasn't a culture. And I think what I've seen now is there is a culture that's building like sports. You talked about females playing soccer. That's great. And then I made the comparison. I went out to America about 2 years ago into California. And you talk about it being a culture. There is a culture. It's almost like the Saturday is sports day. You know, they're literally little kids like 3 years old who could barely walk playing football right away to the under 18s, but it's the same club. Yeah. And all the families on the sideline, you know. And I went to an American football match. One of the guys I was with, his son was playing for an under-16 team. There was 5,000 fans watching it.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And then he's played the game, and we're about to go, and then it's the under 18s, and there's drums, marching bands. I mean, it was just like, what? And there's like 10,000 people.
Yeah.
And this was like the equivalent, I could say, of Yate.
Yeah, exactly.
And yet there's 10,000 people at the game. And I was like, as much as we look at America and we look at it, the outdoor life, and obviously you got to have the weather and that, but there is a culture to get out. And I think there's slowly now happening in the UK where there is this culture of, no, don't just sit indoors, go and interact with people, whether it's dance, whether it's performing arts, whether it's sport or whatever, but go and hang out with people. And because as you said, you might make friends for life.
Yeah, 100%. I think I've mentioned to you before, my cricket club, that we were called SHI.N.E Cricket Club for a long time. We played cricket to a really high standard, sort of punching above our weight. And we got relegated 2 or 3 or 4 seasons in a row. And every time we got relegated, we lost a couple of players that wanted to go and stay playing at a higher standard. And there was no real engagement with the community. It was dying a death. And I don't, you might not have ever been, but Chew Valley Cricket Club is the most beautiful place in the world. Like, it's my favourite place in the world. I got married on the cricket pitch. And I was like, I'm not going to let this die. So it was just a time as S.H.I.N.E were rebranding. So I nicked your playbook that you did for S.H.I.N.E and took it to the cricket club committee. And I was like, right, we need to come up with our mission, vision and values to try and save this cricket club. And we rebranded from SHI.N.E Cricket Club to Chew Valley Cricket Club. And we decided that we were all about community. And we worked really hard to get youth teams going that we've now got under 11s, under 13s, under 15s. And then I managed to rope all my friends in to come and make a girls' cricket team. So there was a group of girls that we got to get our cricket team off the ground. And then since then, we've had sort of an influx of new players to mean that we've got a women's cricket team as well. And this year, we're now starting a second team again for the first time in about sort of 10 years. And we saved the cricket club, and it's what you were just talking about. There's now Friday evening at youth team training. There's sort of 120 kids that are training, and then there's all their parents that are watching, having a drink, and then they're putting money behind the bar so that the club's got more money. And we raised £60,000 last year to be able to afford to pay for some new nets to improve our training facilities, and it's a snowball effect. And it's sort of similar to what you were talking about. That I think if you put your time and energy into something, and I guess that in a nutshell, although it's parent paid, that's what S.H.I.N.E have done as well, is that they've built this community, and particularly where we're based in sort of Henleys and Clifton, Westbury-on-Trim, we've got this really tight community that we have children that will come and do a lunchtime club with us, and then the coach at the lunchtime says, oh, you should come and do an after-school club with us. And they come and do an after-school club with us, and because they enjoy it and they've got a bit of talent, then we say, oh, well, if you're performing at gymnastics at after school club, you might want to try and take that to a bit of a higher level. Why don't you come to our gymnastics development squad? And they come to a gymnastics development squad, and then they really enjoy it. So the parents know the coaches, they trust us, so they come to holiday clubs as well. And all of a sudden, you've got a child coming to every aspect of what S.H.I.N.E does, and you multiply that by sort of thousands of customers, and you've got this amazing community where we're known and trusted locally, and I guess through that success is what we want to replicate on a bigger scale.
And I think that's it. Sport has historically, if you look at the old football grounds, they're in the middle of communities, right? You know, we lose that now. They're almost like shopping malls with a stadium chucked in the middle. But community and sport, and if you go back 100 years, the railway guys was Manchester United. The Liverpool and Everton was started by a vicar, to get the kids off the street and do stuff. So it's great that we're coming full circle where maybe we're not starting, you can start clubs, but obviously childcare now is another community that you've got. And I think, I always challenge Sean and say, look, maybe you should go and have a look what goes on in the States as well, because I think what you bring, the level of professionalism, is not going to be unnoticed if you took that sort of stuff to the States as well. So you might have to get suntan Jamie and fly out there.
My wife was saying to me, she said to me last week, she's like, I still got itchy feet that I want to live in another country. I was like, well, the only way we're going to be able to do that is if S.H.I.N.E starts to franchise out internationally. So if she wants to get her couple of years in Australia, then we've got to try and reach a few different countries. So
no, it's awesome. It's awesome. So for me, how does someone get in touch with you? You know, they might listen to this and said, hey, you know, that's quite interesting. I kind of like beat my brains out of school, but I love the PE. How would they get in touch with you to have a conversation?
So I think a big thing for me at the moment is LinkedIn. I'm really trying to push what we're doing on LinkedIn. So Jamie Dawson, you can follow me on that. And then if you're interested in franchising, then we've got a new webpage, which, as I say, by the time that this probably goes to air, I think will probably be launched, which is shinefranchises.co.uk.
Yeah.
And then if you're just interested in getting involved in Shine because you want your children to join a new football club, then myshine.co.uk is where you can find out all the information about what we currently run in and around Bristol.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I do many things in my life. I love coaching. I did it, you know, as a young guy. I did coaching. I then run a team at the other end of my career when I stopped playing. Loved that as well. And I think, you know, the aspects of bringing children together, parents together and stuff is a great way to impact community. So, you know, well done, Shine, and keep doing it. And let's see where you are in the next 15 years. But if it's anything like the first 15, it's going to be exciting. So thanks for coming on. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, you know, we'll definitely get you back. And then my main goal is to get Sean as well on here at some point.
Yeah, well, I think now John's been on and now I've been on, then Sean's next.
The net's closing.
Yeah, but thank you for having me. But it's been really nice actually to just sit back and reflect and talk about things, because it's something that we don't do very often. So it's nice to to think about where we've come from to where we are now. So yeah, who knows what the next 15 years will bring. Yeah,
thanks so much.
Cheers, thank you.
Thank you so much for being part of the Purpose People podcast. You're listening to us on a regular basis helps us get the message out there that living life on purpose is the best possible life to live. How can you help us? Well, you can like and subscribe to us on YouTube, but you can also follow our podcast channels, which are on Apple, Amazon, and Spotify. Please keep supporting us. Please keep liking and sharing us. Please keep following us on social media. And you know what? We're inspiring more and more people to live life on their terms.